The story starts off back in bygone times when people had power. In Chicago, a youthful Charlie is watching Looney Tunes, little Danny is playing with an iPad, while their mom, Rachel, visits on the telephone. Unexpectedly, the dad Ben blasts inside, and with a stressed look, he illuminates them that they don't have a lot of time left. Rachel appears to know what he's talking about. Somewhere else, two people are seen heading off to some place through the primary parkway. One of them is Ben's sibling, Miles, and the other one is his companion. Miles gets a call from Ben, who quickly tells him, it's all going to switch off and it won't ever at any point walk out on. Befuddled, Miles requests that his sibling make sense of smoothly, yet all of a sudden, his telephone gets turned off. Simultaneously, his companion's cell phone likewise spaces out naturally. Then again, as lights gleam, Ben really takes a look at his PC, which says, downloading records. In the nick of time, it hits 100%, after which he pulls a USB plug from the PC and slips it into a metallic, three-sided, memento-like thing. On the roadway, Miles and his companion get out of their slowed-down vehicle to observe a stream of headlights glimmering off, each vehicle in turn. Planes begin crashing to a great extent. Transformers detonate and burst into flames, and, surprisingly, the famous Willis Pinnacle goes completely dark. We are then shown an aeronautical perspective on the globe, which shows that lights are going out all over the place. It begins in the upper east corner of the U.S. furthermore, spreads west and toward the south. The world is falling into disarray. Then, at that point, we hear a portrayal which illuminates us that 15 years have passed since that critical day. After the power outage, nothing worked. All electric things were delivered pointless, and not just that. Motors, fly turbines and, surprisingly, little batteries became old. This made a chain of occasions that caused mass setbacks. Ailment without medication, fires without fire engines. Food without manufacturing plants. Before long, legislatures fell and civilian armies began rising. After the power outage, the U.S. was isolated into 6 sections, the Monroe Republic, the Georgia Alliance, the Fields Country, Texas, the California Province, and the No Man's Land. Because of the threatening condition of the urban areas, the vast majority have left for other more secure spots. Ben and his family are among those, as they have migrated to the open country. It is a tranquil province in the Monroe Republic, where a couple hundred individuals have settled. It is uncovered that Ben's better half, Rachel, died a couple of years prior, and presently he is dating an English clinical specialist named Maggie. The kids, Danny and Charlie, are additionally full-grown now, however Danny is powerless against being separated from everyone else as extreme asthma. At some point, as Charlie is out in the woodland with her sibling, she tracks down an unwanted RV. Inquisitive, she gets inside and tracks down a little refrigerator that helps her to remember something. Minutes after the power outage, her folks let her eat all the frozen yogurt that was liquefying, in light of the fact that that would be the last frozen yogurt she at any point had. A couple of days after the fact, as Charlie is out on one of her standard campaigns in the woodland, the super military power of the Monroe Republic, the Monroe State Army, barges inside the province. The local army have the Monroe Republic image marked on their wrist to recognize them as individuals. As this settlement is situated in Monroe Republic, the occupants have a commitment to give up their yields as a type of expense. Notwithstanding, Ben realizes that this is something beyond an expense issue. Understanding that something terrible is going to occur, he moves toward his old buddy, Aaron, and gives him the memento, which contains the USB that we saw before. He advises him to protect the memento regardless of anything. Then, the chief of the volunteer army bunch, significant Tom Neville, requests Ben to accompany them. He likewise asks about his sibling, Miles, yet Ben answers that they haven't met in 15 years. As everybody watches in dread, the volunteer army plans to leave, yet all of a sudden, Danny focuses a crossbow at them, undermining to let his dad go. Ben attempts to quiet the circumstance down, yet without any result. Tragically, He is the first to be shot, and along these lines, Danny brings down an adversary. Before long, the locals likewise begin going after the state army, yet they are of no match. After a few group are killed, Tom and his military at long last leave, however not prior to accepting Danny with them as prisoner. Some time later, Charlie at last shows up and finds her dad lying in a pool of blood. With his final gasps, he illuminates her that Danny has been seized by the local army, and presently their main desire to recover him is Miles, who is living in Chicago. Charlie argues with him to hold tight, however Ben advises her to find Uncle Miles prior to dying. Expectedly, Charlie is crushed by the occurrence. Be that as it may, she has no chance to lament. She packs her assets and prepares to head out alone. Yet, a concerned Maggie and Aaron likewise choose to join her, unfortunately. The threesome ventures to every part of the whole day through hazardous territories, and structures a nearby bond with one another. The following morning, when Charlie heads to a close-by cascade to bring some water, she runs over a risky-looking man named Nate. Since the world has dove into absolute disorder after the power outage, each new individual is considered as a danger, even all the more so for a young lady like Charlie. In any case, fortunately for her, Nate just asks her name and lets her go. That night, Charlie and her gathering view as a neglected plane and choose to rest inside. However, tragically, it ends up being the safe house of a gathering of scroungers. The hooligans hold the three at knife point and one of them removes Charlie. Understanding the risk, Maggie cunningly makes different hooligans drink some bourbon, which she had harmed before. Also, when they do as such, they gag to death. Then again, the last hooligan attempts to have his way with Charlie, yet all at once, Nate shows up just under the wire and saves her. The following morning, he goes with the gathering as incidentally, he is likewise heading to Chicago. Maggie has some doubts about the new part in the crew, and cautions Charlie that they shouldn't confide in anybody, yet the last option advises her that not every person is terrible. Somewhere else, as significant Tom and his military are resting, Danny figures out how to liberate himself from his shackles and escapes. He runs the entire evening and moves far away from the civilian army. Yet, in the end falls close to a house because of an asthma assault. A couple of hours after the fact, he awakens inside the house and finds a woman pointing her rifle at him. She presents herself as Beauty, and asks how he wound up here. Danny answers that he was seized, and hearing this, the lady at last brings down her monitor down. She likewise gives him an asthma siphon, referencing that it had a place with his late child. Somewhere else, the gathering at long last arrives at the city of Chicago, which is additionally situated in Monroe Republic. It's something else. Wrigley Field is shrouded in ivy plants. Roads are loaded up with fish sellers and the Volkswagen insect vehicles transformed into horse carts. Following the data given by Ben, they arrive at an inn and ask the barkeep about a specific Miles Matheson. From the beginning, the barkeep declines knowing anybody by that name. In any case, when Charlie makes reference to that her dad has as of late kicked the bucket, he shouts out. He uncovers that he personally is Miles, yet has been staying quiet about his character because of safety reasons. Soon after, Miles takes his niece inside and converses with her secretly. Charlie tells him everything about how the state army killed her dad and hijacked Danny. She then asks about why they are after her family, to which Miles answers that Ben knew something about the power outage. The head of the Monroe Republic, General Monroe, is a brutal tyrant who needs to assume command of the whole nation and at last the world. Yet, for that, he wanted weapons like tanks, military aircraft and, surprisingly, atomic bombs. Also, since Ben was the as it were fellow who had some awareness of the power outage's goal, Monroe accepted that he could invert it. Hearing all this, Charlie turns out to be significantly more worried about her sibling, and requests that her uncle help her. Be that as it may, shockingly, he declines. He asserts that the mission is excessively dangerous, and it's not worth battling for. Troubled, Charlie makes a beeline for her gathering and gets ready to leave. Seeing her steamed, an overprotective Nate stands up to Miles and nearly gets into a battle, yet rather gets his personality uncovered from his wrist. Incidentally, Nate is likewise an individual from the Monroe Volunteer Army. Furthermore, he was following Charlie in the gathering, to make sure he could get to Miles. Everybody is Shocked by the disclosure, yet before they can make a move, Nate takes off. Regardless of his area being compromised, Miles actually will not leave his refuge. He affirms that he will confront the volunteer army alone, assuming he needs to. Charlie and the Gathering proposition to help him. However, Miles yells at them, driving them out. In a matter of moments, an enormous multitude of civilian army, including Nate, shows up there and starts battling with Miles. However, regardless of being dwarfed, he utilizes his extraordinary blade abilities and nimbleness to kill the foes individually. Before long, Charlie and the group likewise return and join the battle, making it somewhat more even. In the midst of the disarray, an individual from the civilian army attempts to kill Charlie. In any case, shockingly, Nate takes him out prior to taking off. Inevitably, the three head to a close-by hovel and begin arranging. Utilizing black powder. Nora makes a shoddy weapon, which will be utilized to kill the watchman with the rifleman. Nonetheless, the issue is that the weapon will be compelling just from a couple of meters. This implies that somebody should move toward the watchman and shoot him. Miles and Nora will effectively be distinguished. What's more, that leaves Charlie as the main practical choice. Prior to leaving, Miles guarantees her that they will take out the other gatekeepers when she makes the kill. Soon after, Charlie conceals the weapon inside her sleeves, claims to be a lost Voyager. Furthermore, approaches the watchman. She then, at that point, gets close to the watchman with the sharpshooter and takes him out right away. Furthermore, before different watchmen can do anything, Miles and Nora trap them and finish them off. After the quarrel, as the slaves are being liberated, Nora uncovers that she took the rifleman for the radicals, a lot of energetic people who need to free the country from the civilian army. At a ward park, as Beauty is composing on her PC, somebody barges inside her home. What's more, faces her. He likewise has a memento like hers, which is delivering energy into his taser stick. Then again, Miles makes an honest effort to persuade Nora to leave the renegade pack. However, she denies. Here, it is uncovered that the two were a couple once, yet needed to separate later. The power outage. Soon after, they show up at a revolutionary base, which is incidentally driven by a sacred minister. The minister is glad that Nora brought the expert sharpshooter weapon, yet shares the awful news that their armed force has recently been trapped. At the point when the Gathering gets inside the base, they track down a few men, either dead or seriously harmed. The minister additionally uncovers that one of the men is absent. Furthermore, hearing this, Miles advises everybody to promptly leave the spot. That's what he trusts. The state army is investigating their man, and it is inevitable before their area is compromised. Nora concurs, yet requests 30 minutes, as they need to fix up the injured men. Tragically, their choice ends up being lethal as soon after a couple of moments. The local army, drove by Commander Adam, appears to delay. Miles arranges their best shooter to head higher up with the rifleman. The arrangement works, as the person begins bringing down a few of the Minutemen, compelling them to withdraw. The stalemate endures so lengthy that it has become night. Inside the base, Miles and the Gathering are attempting to make a passage through the wall, so they can get to the opposite side. Notwithstanding, their arrangement bombs hopelessly when the wall turns out to be free and falls into the opening they recently dug, thus annihilating their persistent effort. Simultaneously, the expert marksman on the rooftop additionally winds up dead. Before long, Commander Adam and his men barge inside the base, yet Miles, who is a phenomenal fighter, cuts down certain men and abducts Adam. He then ties him up in a room and starts considering an exit plan. Shockingly, Adam perceives Miles, leaving everybody in the room stunned. Charlie asks how they know one another, and in a stunning development, Adam uncovers that Miles was the previous right-hand man of General Monroe. As a matter of fact, he is the person who prepared the whole state army, and for that reason they are so lethal. In any case, in spite of the disclosure, Miles is centered around getting them out. He proposes an arrangement, where he will give himself over to the Monroe State Army, and in return, his Gathering will be left safe. For reasons unknown, Adam acknowledges, and soon, Miles is removed. A flashback then, at that point, shows that 14 days after the power outage, Miles left for Chicago looking for his sibling and his dearest companion. Monroe likewise followed him. En route, they run over two men, seriously thrashing a man. Being the pleasant person that he is, Miles approaches them, takes out his weapon. Furthermore, shoots them dead. After this, the two companions help the casualty up, who is uncovered to be none other than Skipper Adam. For this reason he regards Miles, notwithstanding their ongoing lacks of interest. Back in the present, as the civilian army is accompanying Miles to their base, they run over an extension. Unexpectedly, a blast happens, and keeping in mind that everybody is alarmed, Nora and Charlie show up there and salvage Miles. Prior to leaving, they set off one more blast to guarantee that they won't be sought after. Somewhere else, Maggie and Aaron, who are determined to track down Beauty, at last contact her home. However, think that it is deserted. Aaron, who is uncovered to be a previous Google worker, knows an extraordinary arrangement about PCs. So when he heads to the storm cellar, he sees Effortlessness PC and promptly figures out that it was as of late fabricated, demonstrating that the spot had power. Nonetheless, when he breaks down the machine for a really long time, he gets no signs. Tired, Aaron goes higher up and shares his mistake with Maggie. All of a sudden, his pendant beginnings gleaming, and a close-by earphone begins impacting a tune. The episode closes as Maggie's iPhone additionally shows signs of life, in view of which she sees her youngsters after years.